Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. In this video, I'm going to share something that I found as I was making the last video. The last video that I did was notwithstanding the continued fulfillment of prophecy, where Christian Zybarth shared a really interesting quote from George Q. Cannon, where he talked about the fulfillment of prophecy and how it happens in natural ways. And even when Joseph Smith prophesied of the Civil War, it didn't have the convincing power for some that this is the true church, that he's a true prophet, even though it was so specific, right? So good video. I would encourage you to go watch it. But as I was going to the primary source for that, I found other things. So we're going to be looking at the Millennial Star, and this issue has to do with the October General Conference of 1890. And Wilford Woodruff, president of the church at that time, says some pretty remarkable things about encounters that he has with people on the other side of the veil. I had heard something like this before, and I looked that up, and I'm going to show you that because you're probably familiar with, you're probably kind of familiar with this, but we're going to read what I found in Millennial Star. That reminded me of something that President Nelson shared in 2017. I'll have to double check. But a story of President Nelson's grandfather who also had a similar experience. And then we're going to go to the Discourses of Wilford Woodruff, where it has a number of different experiences that he had that are along these lines, like contact with the other side of the veil. Okay, so let's go ahead and, actually really quick, I've updated the Flood the Earth Challenge tracker. We're at 7,414 copies of the Book of Mormon that have been shared so far, and 791 people that have joined the challenge. So we're getting really close to 800. That's the next milestone. So hopefully we can push through and get to that. Ultimately, we're trying to get to 1,000. And then 10,000 copies of the Book of Mormon shared. Those are the goals. If you haven't shared a total of 10 yet, that is the channel goal. Try and get to 10, but don't stop there. Just do as many as you can, but try to at least get to 10 if you can. Good job, everybody. Okay, so let's go to the Millennial Star. By the way, this is on BYU's website. You can always look these up. They have all the different issues. Well, I don't know if they have a complete set, but I imagine that they have all of them. Okay. President Wilford Woodruff said, "I do not think anyone can tell the hour of the coming of the Son of Man. I think those things have been sufficiently revealed to us so that we need not look for the time of that event to be made known. I will say here that in my dreams, I've had a great many visits from the prophet Joseph since his death. The last time I met him was in the spirit world. I met him at the temple." Now remember, this is 1890, so the Salt Lake Temple is not yet dedicated. So I'm assuming that, I can't remember the order of temples, but LDS Temple chronology. I know the St. George Temple was, let me refresh this, was already in operation. St. George, Logan, and Manti. So not sure which temple he's referring to, but it could not have been the Salt Lake Temple. Okay. The last time I met him was in the spirit world. I met him at the temple. He spoke to me, calling me by name. He said, "I cannot stop to talk to you. I am in a hurry." Okay. I met Father Smith. He too said to me, "I'm in a hurry." I met a great many of the apostles and others who are in the spirit world, and they all seem to be in a hurry. I marveled at this and wondered very greatly in my mind why anybody should be in a hurry in the paradise of God. I had an interview with the prophet Joseph afterwards and asked him the question, "Why are you all in such a hurry here?" He said, "I have always been in a hurry in the world since I was born, but I thought there would be no occasion for it when I died and entered the spirit world." He replied, "Well, I will tell you. The prophets and apostles in this dispensation have no time nor opportunity to prepare themselves to go to the earth with the great bridegroom when he goes to meet the bride, the Lamb's wife. So referring to the second coming. We, in this dispensation, have not had time. We have we have first as much work to perform to prepare ourselves as in other dispensations. He said the time was at hand for the coming of the Son of Man, for Christ to go forth in fulfillment of revelation and prophecy to meet the bride, the Lamb's wife, the church and kingdom of God upon the earth. Says he, that is not revealed to us, nor never will be until the hour comes, but we have much work to do to prepare ourselves for the event. I've always believed from the revelations that we never would know the exact time of the coming of the Son of Man, and I am more convinced of this from what the prophet said to me in my dreams. I've had many interviews with President Young since he died, a great many teachings from him, and from others who held important positions here in the flesh, but who have gone into the spirit world and seem, in a measure, to have an interest and watch care over the church and kingdom of God, though they have passed to the other side of the veil. And that's all that it has here. Now, I knew that I had heard something like this somewhere else. I couldn't remember if it was some other prophet. So it turns out, unless there's some other account of this, it turns out that it's the other account is from Wilford Woodruff as well. And we're going to read that in just a minute. But before we do, because I'm going to read a lot from that book, I want to share President Nelson's grandfather's experience. I'm sure you've probably already seen this, like most of you. If not, let me know in the comments below. I like to know if I'm like sharing new things, if my channel is being any value to you. So you can watch this in a few different places. I just pulled up this one. Family history can be fun. Of course it can. Where this person just has the story itself rather than the full video. This was for, what was it? Roots Tech Family Discovery Day opening session 2017. So at this time, President Nelson was president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, not yet president of the church. Okay, but what I'm going to do is I copied it and put it on my spreadsheet, on my quotes A through Z spreadsheet. I'm going to add these other ones from Wilford Woodruff, but I haven't done that yet. So I just did this for the purpose of this video so I can easily read this. Okay, so this is President Nelson. When my grandfather, A.C. Nelson, was a young husband and father, just 27 years old, his father died. Then, about 3 months later, his father, now deceased, came to visit him. The date of that visit was the night of April 6th, 1891. And you know what's weird? This is just weird. It's weird. 1891, because that's what this general conference that we were just reading from, where Wilford Woodruff spoke, they were talking about 1891 quite a bit, because there were a lot of members of the church that were expecting the second coming in that year. That's the context of why he was even talking about this, because they were looking at what Joseph Smith said, that he would not see the face of the Son of, or I can't remember how he worded it, but he wouldn't see Christ until he reached 85 years of age. You remember that? I read it in the last video. So 1891, I guess, was that year. And so a lot of people were speculating that something big would happen. So it's just kind of weird as we're reading President Nelson's grandfather's experience that something for him did happen in 1891. Okay, so the date of that visit was the night of April 6, 1891. Grandfather Nelson was so impressed by his father's visit that he wrote down the experience in his own journal for his family and his friends. And thanks to your encouragement, I took his journal entry and created this document and made copies of this document for every member of the family. Listen to my grandfather's words about that sacred experience. Quote, I was in bed when Father entered the room. He came and sat on the side of the bed. He said, "Well, my son, as I had a few spare minutes, I received permission to come and see you for a few minutes. I am feeling well, my son, and have had very much to do since I died." What have you been doing since you died, Father? I've been traveling together with Apostle Erastus Snow ever since I died. That's an interesting thought. Okay, so pause. I like, okay, I've said many times before on the channel that I like listening to near-death experiences from anybody, although I have the understanding, and hope you do too, that there's people that lie and people that have other motives for coming up with those stories, whether it be, they write a book and make money from it, or just cheap attention, because some people, that's how they live life. They harvest attention. And so that's an easy way to do it. You just make up a story and then people view you as special. So you have to discern, feel the spirit. And if they say something that's contrary to the gospel, it's wrong. Okay. Or they didn't have a complete understanding of that experience. Because again, it's not like they went there and stayed. And even in the spirit world, you're still going through this like probationary phase. So it's not like you get all the answers when you go over there. But in any case, everyone has come back, so they don't know exactly what happens if they stay there. But okay, so with that said, I like listening to near-death experiences, but I place even greater value on stories like this, obviously, because it's coming from, it's being relayed by someone that is now the president of the church. And he feels that this was an accurate account. And it can give us some details about what we can expect. Now, hopefully we just make it to the second coming and get quickened. But if not, this gives us some hints as to what we might expect when we pass away. So he says, "Ever since I died, I've been traveling with Apostle Erastus Snow." Have you ever thought about when you die? Is it going to be the same for you? Is this just for maybe priesthood holders? Like you're going on a mission? Are there women that are traveling around together? I don't know. But whatever the case, it seems like he got there and then was immediately put to work. Maybe there's more that he's not telling, but that's what it sounds like. Okay. "I've been traveling together with Apostle Erastus Snow ever since I died. That is, since 3 days after I died." Oh, okay. So I missed that part. So I guess he had at least a 3-day holiday to spend time with family and friends, maybe on the other side. But then, right to work. "I received my commission to preach the gospel. You cannot imagine, my son, how many spirits there are in the spirit world that have not yet received the gospel. But many are receiving it, and a great work is being accomplished. Many are anxiously looking forth for their friends who are still living to administer for them in the temples. I've been very busy preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. Father, can you see us at all times, and do you know what we're doing? Oh no, my son, I have something else to do. I cannot go when and where I please. There's just as much and much more order here in the spirit world than in the other world. I have been assigned work to do, and it must be performed." So that's really interesting. I think that a lot of us have the notion that loved ones are just like hovering around, following us all the time. And maybe they occasionally do, but if it's like this, if they're like members of the church and they're preaching the gospel, then probably not. They're probably engaged doing that. Okay. Continuing. "We intend to go to the temple and get sealed to you, Father, as soon as we can. That, my son, is partly why I came to see you about. We will yet make a family and live throughout eternity. Father, is it natural to die? It is just as natural to die as it is to be born, or for you to pass out of that door. And here, he pointed at the door. When I told the folks that I could not last long, okay, wait, what? and here. He pointed at the door. When I told the folks that I could not last long, it turned dark. Oh, this must have been like on his deathbed. When I told the folks that I could not last long, it turned dark and I could not see anything for a few minutes. Then the first thing I could see was a number of spirits in the spirit world. The paper you gave me, my son, is dated wrong, but it makes no particular difference. Correct records are kept here. And by the way, we've covered that on the channel before, that these records that are being kept over there are going to be delivered in the millennium by resurrected beings to, they're going to be delivered to the church or to the temples, because there are people that have absolutely no record. There's no amount of family history research you can do to find every single person in the human family. So obviously, we'd have to rely on some other source. And Joseph Fielding Smith, and I think others, but I know Joseph Fielding Smith said that resurrected beings are going to be the ones that furnish that information. And it seems that it would be from these records. Okay. Father, is the gospel as taught by this church true? My son, do you see that picture? Pointing to a picture of the first presidency of the church hanging on the wall. Yes, I see it. Just as sure as you see that picture, just as sure is the gospel true. The gospel of Jesus Christ has within it the power of saving every man and woman that will obey it, and in no other way can they ever obtain salvation in the kingdom of God. My son, always cling to the gospel. Be humble, be prayerful, be submissive to the priesthood, be true, be faithful to the covenants you have made with God. Never do anything that would displease God. Oh, what a blessing is the gospel, my son. Be a good boy. So that is a really neat experience, and I'm glad that President Nelson shared it. I have not had one like that myself, but that's okay. I can live through somebody else like this. And it's really neat. It's really neat to think. And I wish that I could, look on the other side of the veil when he talks about there being more order over there. I'd like to know exactly what he means by that. There was a near-death experience that we covered on the channel. It was a member of the first presidency, not one that you're really familiar with from the time of, John Taylor, Wilford Woodruff, where he had a near-death experience and he described like buildings over there. Like you would think that there would just be buildings here in mortality, but no, they have buildings over there. I suppose with spiritual lumber and other materials. I don't know how it works, but he described buildings and plants that were just like so, I can't remember how he described it, but like eloquent, colorful, much more colorful. I think he said different colors than what are here and things like that. So I do have the question, you and I, if we survive and we make it into the millennium, there's not going to be any more death like there is now. There's not going to be graves. There's not going to be tombstones. You're going to be changed in the twinkling of an eye. And therefore, the question is, are you going to be able to ever see what the spirit world was like? Is that going to be an experience that you and I never experience? Except like maybe in the eternities once we reach godhood and we see how things work? I don't know. But anyway, okay, so there's that. Now let's go to this. Okay, so this book is called The Discourses of Wilford Woodruff. Okay, we're going down to page 287. And this is a really interesting chapter right here. I'm thinking about doing a video of this first part. So the chapter is chapter 24, Remarkable Manifestations. I have not read through this entirely. In fact, I've only kind of skimmed through it. So I'm going to start right here because these next sections are the ones that kind of relate to what we've been talking about. The other ones before this, not so much. So I'll put that in a different video. So the first section that we're going to read within this chapter is called Influence of Those in the Heavens. And this is probably the one that a lot more people are more familiar with people being in a hurry on the other side of the veil. Okay, he says, "Now I will give you a little of my experience in this line. Joseph Smith visited me a great deal after his death and taught me many important principles. On one occasion, he and his brother Hiram visited me while I was in a storm at sea." That's interesting. "I was going on my last mission to preside in England. My companions were brother Leonard W. Hardy, Milton Holmes, Dan Jones, and another brother, and my wife and 2 other women. We had been traveling 3 days and nights in a heavy gale and were being driven backwards. Finally, I asked my companions to come into the cabin with me, and I told them to pray that the Lord would change the wind. I had no fears of being lost, but I did not like the idea of being driven back to New York, as I wanted to go on my journey. We all offered the same prayer, both men and women, and when we got through, we stepped onto the deck, and in less than a minute, it was as though a man had taken a sword and cut the gale through. And you might have thrown a muslin handkerchief out, and it would not have moved it. The night following this, Joseph and Hiram visited me, and the prophet laid before me a great many things. Among other things, he told me to get the Spirit of God, that all of us needed it. He also told me that the 12 apostles would be called to go through on the earth before the coming of the Son of Man, and what the reward of their labors would be. But all that was taken from me for some reason. Nevertheless, it was most glorious, although much would be required at our hands." I want to stop right here really quick because just within the last couple of videos, as we've been going through President Nelson's posts, he has been doing a lot of going throughout the world, to a surprising degree, more I think than I realized. Just with it, because I've only done 2018 and 2019 so far, going through his social media posts. And by the way, if you haven't seen those videos, I would encourage you to watch them. It is a lot of stuff, but there are a lot of gems that we come across. And one of those things is just how much he has traveled throughout the world. He's been to South America. He's been to the Pacific. He went to Jerusalem. Excuse me. What are some of the other places? Oh yeah, he went to Southeast Asia, and I'm talking like multiple countries, and then lots of travel here in the United States. And that's just in the first 2 years, and it probably doesn't include everybody that he's met with. He's been meeting with a lot of world leaders, not just where they are, but them coming to him in Salt Lake City. So what we're reading right now probably has a lot to do with what President Nelson is doing right now. It's crazy. Oh, I wish I could be a fly on the wall while he's, receiving instruction and guidance from Joseph and Hiram. Okay. Joseph Smith continued visiting myself and others up to a certain time, and then it stopped. The last time I saw him was in heaven. In the night vision, I saw him at the door of the temple in heaven. He came to me and spoke to me. He said he could not stop to talk with me because he was in a hurry. Okay, so this is now the same thing that he shared in General Conference, October 1890. The next man I met was Father Smith. He could not talk with me because he was in a hurry. I met half a dozen brethren who had held high positions on earth, and none of them could stop to talk with me because they were in a hurry. I was much astonished, and by I saw the prophet again, and I got the privilege of asking him a question. "Now," said I want to know why you were in a hurry. I have been in a hurry all my life, but I had expected my hurry would be over when I got into the kingdom of heaven, if I ever did. Joseph said, I will tell you, Brother Woodruff, every dispensation that has had the priesthood on the earth and has gone into the celestial kingdom has had a certain amount of work to do to prepare to go to the earth with the Savior when he goes to reign on the earth. Each dispensation has had ample time to do this work. We have not. Isn't that how it always goes? We are the last dispensation, and so much work has to be done, and we need to be in a hurry in order to accomplish it. Of course, that was satisfactory, but it was new doctrine to me. Oh, what an experience that must have been. So he's telling this. Now, this telling of this story is 1896. So what we read was the 1890 telling of it at General Conference, but this one is 6 years later. So they go together, and obviously, if there's a lot of work that needs to be done over there, there equally needs to be a lot of work done here in mortality, both for the living and for the dead. So we all need to go to the temple and share the Book of Mormon. Let's help them out and let's share the Book of Mormon. Oops, go to this one. Okay, the next section is in an interview with Brigham Young. I believe the eyes of the heavenly host are over this people. I believe they are watching the elders of Israel, the prophets and apostles and men who are called to bear off this kingdom. I believe they watch over us all with great interest. I've had many interviews with Brother Joseph until the last 15 or 20 years of my life. I have not seen him for that length of time, but during my travels in the southern country last winter, I had many interviews with President Young and with Heber C. Kimball and George A. Smith and Jedediah M. Grant and many others who are dead. They attended our conference. They attended our meetings. That's interesting. This is a change because what we've read so far is everyone's in a hurry and they're busy doing work. Both from Wilford Woodruff and in what he's said about Joseph and Hiram and Father Smith and others, and then President Nelson's grandfather or his great-grandfather, who also said, well, I'm only stopping by because I got a couple minutes. They let me have a couple minutes to come see you. So this is different. Okay. On one occasion, I saw Brother Brigham and Brother Heber ride in a carriage ahead of the carriage in which I rode when I was on my way to attend conference. Okay, so this is weird. Presumably, they're still spirits, probably not resurrected at this point. I don't know. But think about spirits riding in a spirit carriage. Okay, I assume that's what's going on. Okay. And they were dressed in the most priestly robes. Can you imagine that, you guys? Especially like if you've been to the temple. And I'm not saying that they're wearing what is worn in the temple, but probably something similar. They're in a carriage wearing priestly robes. Could be a different type of robe. I don't know. Okay, when we arrived at our destination, I asked President Young if he would preach to us. He said, "No, I have finished my testimony in the flesh. I shall not talk to this people anymore. But," said he, "I have come to see you. I have come to watch over you and to see what the people are doing." Then said he, "I want you to teach the people, and I want you to follow this counsel yourself, that they must labor and so live as to obtain the Holy Spirit. For without this, you cannot build up the kingdom. Without the Spirit of God, you are in danger of walking in the dark and in danger of failing to accomplish your calling as apostles and as elders in the church and the kingdom of God." And said he, "Brother Joseph taught me this principle." Yeah, that's interesting because that's what Wilford Woodruff said that Joseph Smith said earlier. Okay. And I will here say, I have heard him refer to that while he was living. But what I was going to say is this. The thought came to me that Brother Joseph had left the work of watching over this church and kingdom to others, and that he had gone ahead, and that he had left this work to men who have lived and labored with us since he left us. This idea manifested itself to me that such men advance in the spirit world, and I believe myself that these men who have died and gone into the spirit world had this mission left with them. That is, a certain portion of them to watch over the Latter-day Saints. This was, this is in the Journal of Discourses, October 10th, 1880. Okay, so that's an interesting idea too. So if that's the case, I wonder who's watching over the church right now. Maybe it just goes to the most recently deceased president of the church, for example. Maybe it's President Monson that's looking over the church right now, or maybe Gordon B. Hinckley or something like that. Okay, the next one. When men are called to the other side. Perhaps I may be permitted to relate a circumstance with which I am acquainted in relation to Bishop Ruskelly of Smithfield, Cache Valley. On one occasion, he was suddenly taken very sick, near to death's door. While he lay in this condition, President Peter Mon, is it Mon? I think it's Mon. It's probably silent. Mon, who was dead, came to him and said, "Brother Ruskelly, we held a council on the other side of the veil. I have had a great deal to do, and I have the privilege of coming here to appoint one man to come and help. I have had 3 names given to me in council, and you were one of them. I want to inquire into your circumstances." That's interesting. Is he like basically coming like, "Hey, is it okay if you die? We really need you over here. Can you please die? It's up to you." The bishop told him what he had to do, and they conversed together as one man would converse with another. President Mon then said to him, "I think I will not call you. I think you are wanted here more than perhaps one of the others." Okay, who's the other guy? Who's the other guy that's not wanted? Bishop Ruskelly got well from that hour. Very soon after, the second man was taken sick, but not being able to exercise sufficient faith, Brother Ruskelly did not go to him. By and by, this man recovered, and on meeting Brother Ruskelly, he said, Brother Mon came to me the other night and told me he was sent to call one man from the ward. And he named 2 men, as had been done to Brother Ruskelly. A few days afterwards, the third man was taken sick and died. Holy cow. Now you have to wonder about people in your ward that pass away. Are they having experiences that maybe they're not sharing? Like, it's like, you know what? I just had an experience and I decided to go ahead and move on. Or not. And then people that didn't, do they tell anybody? I don't know. Now, I named this to show a principle. They have work on the other side of the veil, and they want men, and they call them. And that was my view in regards to Brother George A. Smith. Sorry, really quick. That's an interesting idea, because you would think that maybe more people are needed here, because you have temple work for the dead that can only be performed in mortality. There's like a common misconception. A lot of people think that when the millennium happens, all the resurrected saints are going to be there, and then they're going to participate in the temple ordinances, and that's not true. Joseph Fielding Smith said that they don't. They furnish the records, but it's a task that's assigned to those that are still in mortality. And so you would think that there's like a scarcity of people. Like, if anything, that would be like the bottleneck of getting people through to where they need to go into, the celestial kingdom and exaltation. So it's kind of weird that they would be taken away from people in mortality. Of course, those people were probably going to die soon anyway, but I don't know. Okay. and that was my view in regards to Brother George A. Smith. When he was almost at death's door, Brother Cannon administered to him, and in 30 minutes he was up and ate breakfast with his family. We labored with him in this way, but ultimately, as you know, he died. But it taught me a lesson. I felt that man was wanted behind the veil. We labored also with Brother Pratt, but he too was wanted behind the veil. Okay, passing of A.H. Cannon. We lost one of our apostles a short time since. He was about the youngest man in the quorum of the apostles. He was suddenly called away from us. There is a meaning to this. Many times, things take place with us that we do not comprehend unless it is given to us by revelation. That is interesting. Sorry to keep pausing. It's part of the show. I feel like I've had that in my life. I know that there's things that I've gone through that I didn't understand at that time, but then later, sometimes much later, I finally realize why that thing happened and how it led me to this point. I'm sure that you have probably experienced that as well. Okay, continuing. But there is a meaning in the loss of that young apostle. I had a manifestation of that while in San Francisco recently. One evening, as I fell asleep, I was very much troubled with evil spirits that tried to afflict me. And while laboring to throw off these spirits and their influence, there was another spirit visited me that seemed to have power over the evil spirits, and they departed from me. Before he left me, he told me not to grieve because of the departure of Abraham Hoagland Cannon, for the Lord had called him to fill another important mission in the spirit world, as a pure and holy apostle from Zion in the Rocky Mountains, a labor which would not only prove a great benefit to his father's household, but also to the church and kingdom of God on the earth. I feel to name this because it is true. I have become acquainted with many things in our history that I have marveled at. While in the St. George Temple, I had a son. While in the St. George Temple, I had a son who was in the North Country, drowned. He had a warning of this. In a dream, he was notified how he would die. We had testimony of that after his death. I asked the Lord why he was taken from me. The answer to me was, "You're doing a great deal for the redemption of your dead, but the law of redemption requires some of your own seed in the spirit world to attend to work connected with this." That was a new principle to me, but it satisfied me why he was taken away. I named this because there are a great many instances like it among the Latter-day Saints. This was the case with Brother Abraham Cannon. He was taken away to fulfill that mission. And where we have anything of this kind, we should leave it in the hands of God to reconcile. This is in 1896. Yeah, that is something to think about. Maybe some of us already kind of like realize that when we have somebody in our life pass away, maybe that's kind of revealed to you. Maybe not through some like grand manifestation, but you just kind of realize that they're needed on the other side of the veil. But I don't know. That's just an interesting thing to think about. Okay, the next one. This one I think has to do with something other than the spirit world, but let's just read it. Follow the dictates of the Spirit. I will now tell you one incident where I did not obey the Spirit of the Lord, and it came pretty near costing me my life. I was over at Randolph one December visiting. On Monday morning, the Spirit said to me, "Take your team and go home." I made up my mind to do it, but some of my friends felt anxious that I should stop, as my visit had been rather short, and I was persuaded to stop. I stayed until Saturday morning, but I felt uneasy. That warning the Spirit rested upon me to that degree that I felt condemned, and I told my friends that I was going home. I ate an early breakfast that morning, put my horses to my wagon, took some hay and grain, and started for home by way of Wasatch, which was some 30 miles from here. When I got to Woodruff, the bishop wanted me to stay and hold a meeting. There on Sunday. No, said I have already stayed too long by 1 week. Well, after I got about 3 miles from Woodruff, which is 15 miles from Wasatch, I met with one of the most terrific snowstorms I ever saw in my life. 5 minutes after it commenced, I could not see the road. I could not guide my horse at all. So I let them go where they pleased. They had been twice over the ground before. I shut down the wagon cover and went to praying. Yeah, okay. I asked the Lord to forgive me for not obeying his commandments. At 8 o'clock, my horses carried me into Wasatch, the hubs of the wheels being under the snow. I think they must have got there by inspiration. I stayed there until Monday night. I made up my mind that whenever the Lord told me to do anything, I would do it. I speak of this because every man should get the Spirit of God and then follow its dictates. This is revelation. It doesn't make any difference what the Spirit tells you to do. It will never tell you to do anything that is wrong. Okay, saving the farm. At one conference, when we had set apart a good many missionaries, I went home quite weary, and I said to myself, I will go and have a rest. Before I got in my house, the Spirit told me to take my team and go to my farm. My wife said, "Where are you going?" "I'm going down to the farm." "What for?" "I don't know," said I. I went down to the farm. I found that the river had broken over and had surrounded my house. The water was 2 feet deep around my house. My hogs were drowning and my stables were full. By going there, I saved my house and surroundings and stopped up the break. These may be considered small things. Still, they show the working of the Spirit. Okay, the Pittsburgh steamboat incident or experience. I think this might be the last one, if I remember right. When I got back to winter quarters from the pioneer journey in 1847, President Young said to me, "Brother Woodruff, I want you to take your wife and children and go to Boston and stay there until you can gather every saint of God in New England and Canada and send them up to Zion." I did as he told me. I took me 2 years to gather up everybody, and I brought up the rear with a company. There were about 100 of them. We arrived at Pittsburgh one day at sundown. We did not want to stay there, so I went to the first steamboat that was going to leave. I saw the captain and engaged passage for us on that steamer. I had only just done so when the Spirit said to me, and that too very strongly, "Don't go aboard that steamer, nor your company." Of course, I went and spoke to the captain and told him I had made up my mind to wait. Well, that ship started and had only got 5 miles down the river when it took fire, and 300 persons were burned to death or drowned. If I had not obeyed that Spirit and had gone on that steamer with the rest of the company, you can see what the result would have been. Yikes. Okay, it looks like this might be... Okay, I was wrong. There's actually a few more after this, but I think this video has gone on long enough. So if you'd be interested to read the other ones, which I am, but put it in the comments below, and then we can probably do that. But it's amazing. It really is amazing. It's amazing experiences with the other side of the veil. I don't know how rare they are, but I think that they're relatively rare, very special. I think that if you ever have one, you should definitely write it down unless you're instructed not to do so. And there really is a life on the other side of this. Now, hopefully, just the second coming happens, and then we'll get quickened and just resurrected. And I suppose if it's resurrected beings that are furnishing the records from the spirit world, maybe as a resurrected being, you would be able to kind of experience the spirit world. I don't really know. There would still be spirits there because not everybody gets resurrected at the same time. Those that are worthy, that are celestial, they get resurrected first, and then later on, it's the those that are terrestrial, and then at the very end of the millennium, and before the earth becomes a celestial world, that's when the telestials get resurrected. So I guess you would have an opportunity to see spirits, and I guess they would just look like people, but I guess you'd be able to kind of like see the workings of the spirit world in some way. But okay, well, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.